Good evening, kind greetings. Thank you, and you are welcome. And we greatly appreciate your presence for our broadcast tonight. The Veteran Among Us, LGBTQIA Veterans Plus, the National Veteran Support Group broadcast. Uh, we are grateful to have with us tonight our co-chaplain, Chaplain Maureen F. Burns, who is with us by way of a still photo, STILL photo. She's having a challenge with her camera, and we're going to keep working with her until uh, uh, we get it to working all the time. She did what they asked her to do, and it did work at the broadcast last week. And here we are, um, 4 or 5 days later, and it isn't. Well, you know how technology goes. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it does not work. But we thank God for the technology, and we thank God for Chaplain Maureen F. Burns.
But I'm certainly here in spirit, in person, and in voice.
Amen. I appreciate that, Chaplain Maureen. Really, I do. And I think that you're in your own space tonight. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Hallelujah. It's only taken 100 years, but praise the Lord, year 101, you're all settled in and ready to roll. We thank God for you sticking with the journey, Chaplain Maureen, and we ask the viewing and the listening audience if you would please call a veteran, friend, a member of your family, whether they are veterans or not, one of your colleagues, one of your fellow church members, somebody in your community. Please contact somebody and invite them to our broadcast tonight. We have a unique officer with tonight. First time we've talked with someone with the newly created United States Space Force. And before I introduce her and bring her on, I want to say that what makes the colonel so unique is well, a number of things. I believe that she is our first uh, guest from the Jewish community, and that is quite significant because we are radically inclusive, and it helps us.
She's actually a non-believer, Chaplain
Well,
PJ.
yeah. I was, but she's still from the Jewish community.
That's true.
Okay, and what makes that significant is that we are radically inclusive, and this gives us an opportunity to show our radical inclusion of all the people of the earth, of all the veterans of the earth. And that's really the most significant part, in my opinion, about Colonel Bree, is that not only is she Jewish, she has managed to rise to the level of an O5. Now, for those of you who are veterans, you know that if that is in the Space Force or the Air Force or the Marines or the Army, that an O5 is a lieutenant colonel. And for the Navy, that would be a commander. So that is the second, in my opinion, significant piece of information that I wanted to share with you tonight. And as Chaplain Maureen was saying, one of the things that is most amazing to me is that that although she was brought up in the I think it's called Bach Mitzvah, I went through the process of what is called in the African American community the rites of passage. That as she became an adult, that she opted out of being a faith-based person. We affirm that, and we thank her for being that transparent. And last but certainly not least, and maybe this should have been the first thing that I said about Colonel Bree, and that is that she is transgender. Now that is so special to us because we do not have that many. What Chaplain Maureen, about four? We've got Dr. Monica. What is his name? Abdul Emo. Is that the way that's pronounced, Pastor Sue?
We have Jonathan Thunderword.
Jonathan Thunderword, and maybe one more. So our transgender community are minorities within a minority within a minority. And the wonderful thing about Colonel Bree is that she is so accomplished, and at the same time she is very humble. She's just laid back and a marvelous person with whom we will be conversing tonight. And so we're going to ask Pastor Sue, if you would bring forth the Honorable Lieutenant Colonel Bree Fram. Thank you, Colonel. Appreciate you being here. You see how clean and how neat her office is. You know, not a paper out of place. Just
Well, thank you for the introduction, but it's going to be hard to stay humble with that kind of introduction proceeding.
well, I don't. I think it's a natural for you, based on my conversation with you. By the way, I would like to show the viewing community in particular, and those who will be going back to do the review or the retake. This is her book, With Honor and Integrity, Transgender Troops in Their Own Words. We'll be telling you a little bit later as to how you can order that. By the way, Colonel, I need to find another option. My bank and I are just messed up. I cannot use PayPal. I cannot use. I'm gonna have to send a check to Pastor Sue because it's still messed up. And here we're into the second week of it being messed up, but we're working on getting it straight. So I'm wondering if I can also send you a check, and then afterwards, if you'll send me your mailing address, I'll just put the check in the mail to you. So this is, but all that notwithstanding, I'm really excited about this book. And reading this book and getting an autographed copy of the book, because I firmly believe, Colonel, that there is power in storytelling. I made that observation in my article this week, that I will not read all of it at this very second. But one of the things that I said in the second or third paragraph is storytelling is a powerful agent for recalling, healing, and being heard. What else do you find to be some of the benefits of some of the other benefits of storytelling, and is that and what was your motivation for collecting these stories?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things about storytelling for me is it's a way to connect. It is a way to reach out to people that you might not otherwise be able to, because it is such an ancient art. It is so embedded in who we are, as a way to connect with one another, and really as a way to hopefully reduce fear, reduce the ignorance that may be out there around topics that if you just talk, hey, here's just the facts, or here's some things about trans people or any other minority that is feared or misunderstood. It's tough, but when you can see people as human through the art of storytelling, I think that's a really powerful way to go about making that connection and bringing the temperature down and making sure that we all can connect in one way or another.
Speaking of
Go ahead, Chaplain
storytelling,
Maureen.
speaking of storytelling, Colonel Bree, would you mind giving us just a couple sentences on who and what the Space Force is? Because some of our listeners may not be familiar. So if you could just give us a couple sentences.
Sure. So the Space Force is the newest branch of the United States military. We've been in existence just over 2 years with approximately 8,000 military people right now. The Space Force designs, develops, and operates everything that we do in space. So without the Space Force, you don't have your phone telling you how to get from one place to another with directions. Without the Space Force, your credit card stops working. Without the Space Force, the communication that passes back and forth between our teams and our military here at home and those deployed all around the world doesn't happen. So Space Force really builds the backbone of the military, that without it, it would be hard to imagine us, fighting. It would be like going back to World War II without the Space Force today.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you. And thank you, Chaplain Maureen. Now that raises another question for me. What were we doing before Space Force?
So I served 18 and a half years in the Air Force prior to recommissioning into the Space Force. The bulk of the people that transferred over, as well as the programs, came out of the Air Force. But we're also drawing in people from the Marines, from the Army, from the Navy, and bringing together all the space programs that the Department of Defense operates under one branch, with a new way of thinking, with developing a 21st century military culture that talks about what you mentioned, that inclusive environment of how important it is to bring us all in, engage diverse perspectives, and make sure we use that to get the best mission outcomes.
Wow. Chaplain Maureen, want to respond to that?
I think that's absolutely wonderful, and I think it's right on time. As a matter of fact, it's a little late, but I am so proud of the way things are developing in the military in the last few years. I got out in 2000, and the developments that have happened in the past 20 years have just amazed me. For instance, I never thought in my lifetime that it would be acceptable for LGBTQT people to serve. I couldn't have comprehended that when I went in 1979. That was back then. They used to do sweeps of bars and get you to turn in your friends. It was crazy. And now we have someone that's an 05 sitting in your position in your office with your book completely out, and you are respected as you should be, and you are held up, and you are be able to lead others, and you're able to be a shining example of what someone who can serve is able to do if they're given the opportunity to serve.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And, one of the terms I like to embrace, and so many others do as well, is that term of trailblazer. And not because it means, look at me, look where I've made it to, but it means that if I and others have cut down the trees, we've paved the road, we've made it so that those that follow us can reach where we've made it easier without expending all the energy we had to get there, that allows them to go even further. And I think that's what's incredibly important about representation, about inclusiveness, and about those of us that have just had to go through these challenges to be open and authentic, so we can enable the next generation who gets to be open and authentic from the start to go do even more incredible things.
Well, one of the things Jesus said is, you will do even greater things than I. So he was a trailblazer who said that he was going to see people like us one day do things that were greater than he. And we just discussed that a couple of weeks ago, what all that means. And you're, once again, an example of just that happening.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And it's something that I try and embrace, try and be a good representative. And based on my circumstances, if I can be somewhere where someone has the opportunity to look and say, hey, look what she's done. Maybe I can do that too. Maybe I should join the military. Maybe it is a welcoming and open environment. Well, that's awesome. That truly makes me feel incredible for just that opportunity that might be out there for those that are still to come.
Chaplain PJ, you're muted.
Well, I'm happy to keep talking while we try and figure it out. You did ask earlier, and I don't think I really answered kind of the motivation behind writing this book. We touched on it a little bit though in this conversation of, who are the examples? Who can people look up to? And what this book does is tells 26 different stories of individuals, transgender folks that have served in the military, some of which were in the past prior to open service, dating back to the Vietnam era, but most of whom are actively serving today. And so that ability to tell these different stories among different career fields, every different service, officer and enlisted, all sorts of different intersectional identities, that was really important to show not only is there no one way to be trans, there's no one way to be trans in the military. And you can have experiences that are funny, that are poignant, that are sad, but that are motivational. So tons of great ways and great representatives in this book. So it was really an honor to tell their story and to tell a bit of that history that Chaplain Burns, you were speaking of not knowing, what it was going to be like. But there's some great books out there that tell the story from the Don't Ask, Don't Tell era of what repealing that was like. And Dixon Osborne wrote a great book recently about the history of that. And we pick up that torch. We start with the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and tell the history of what it was like to fight for open service and have to be an advocate. And first to do it from the shadows, and then to do it from an open and authentic position.
That is absolutely wonderful. I am so looking forward to reading the book as well. It sounds like a dynamic book written by a dynamic woman. Thank you so much for being a trailblazer and leading the way. And you said that it was written from people from all different perspectives. Do you have all 6 branches of the military represented?
We do. We have all branches of the military, and including Space Force and Coast Guard. So it's a really wide collection of people that have just served for a few months, or excuse me, a few years, up to 20 plus. One of our contributors, when she finished writing, had just finished 30 years of service in the Marines. So yeah, an incredible range of people that hopefully you read their contribution, all written in their own words, and you say, hey, this would be someone I would love to share a meal with and just get to know a little bit better.
Would you mind sharing a little bit of your personal history with us? Did you start in the military? Obviously, you have many years to make it to colonel, so you must not have started as a transgender.
No, so when I joined the military, it was 2003, and we were a long ways from reaching open service. So I had to conceal my identity for a large portion of my service. And through that, there are the struggles that come with that. There are the concepts of, inserting a filter into my brain, something that had to sit in between my thoughts and either the words I was saying or the actions that I needed to do, because if that filter wasn't there and I said the wrong word to the wrong person, or I used the wrong pronouns, I talked about where I was on the weekend, my career could have been gone in an instant. So that's a burden that so many LGBTQ folks have faced in the military under both Don't Ask, Don't Tell and under the trans ban. And that's a powerful challenge to overcome, because that filter prevents you from being your best. You could be good, you could be great at what you do, but you're not your best. So what we've done by enabling open service is we're unlocking potential, and we're enabling people to be their best self, but that also enables the best performance out of the team, and getting the mission accomplished. So to me, that's really important, and something that's going to lead us forward and to be able to do even better things in the future. But I didn't come out until 2016, when the ban on open transgender service was lifted for the first time.
Now, is that a permanent ban, or if some psycho comes back into office, can that be reversed?
So right now we are operating under executive branch policy. So while the Obama administration was able to put policy in place for open service, the Trump administration through an executive order reversed it, and then the Biden administration through another executive order reversed it. So we are currently at the will of the president to make changes to this policy. So a future administration could flip the clock back, could reinstitutionalize discrimination. So one of the big things that's really important to me, to thousands of others, is how do we enshrine the opportunity for service into law? How can we get Congress to pass something that enables the opportunity to serve be open to anyone who's otherwise capable of meeting the standard, regardless of things like gender identity? So that's really important moving forward.
So your gender identity is not. See, I can't mute myself. So that's why we're getting this echo. But in terms of readiness, do you find that that transitionings or transgendering increases or decreases one's sense of readiness? Because that was one of the arguments. How can they be ready to serve if they're transgender?
So I think it is actually a force multiplier. Again, it goes back to that enabling people to be their best self. When someone can come out, they can get any medical care that is deemed necessary by their doctor, which is basically the compact that we have with all service members. The military is going to provide the kind of healthcare that is going to make you your best at accomplishing your wartime mission. And if we go down the road of, well, what's expensive? What do we pay for? What do we not? That ends up getting into a discussion of, well, do women belong in the military? Because a woman who becomes pregnant is not ready to deploy for generally about 2 years. And trans people can do so far less than that you can schedule any potential downtime that there may be, say, when you have a bunch of leave, when you're doing a training rotation. So there's many ways that you can control that, minimize it, and really in the long term enhance readiness. And I don't make that argument to disparage women's service, but to say we've solved these issues. We have figured out how a wide range of people can serve, can add value, and can deliver incredible mission results to the United States military.
I agree with you, Colonel Bree, that being able to serve at your highest potential, I mean, regardless of who we are as humans on the planet, aren't we all trying to seek our highest potential? Or maybe I should say we should be trying to reach our highest potential. Not everyone is doing it. But, if we are limited by the constructs of society and by the constructs of politics to being our full self, then that hinders the kingdom of God, the kingdom, K-I-N-dom of God, because people, I feel, are put on the planet to become their highest potential. Whatever gift it is that you've been given, and I know you wouldn't use these terms, but they're the terms I use, whatever gifts you've been given by your Creator, it is your job when you get on this planet to use those to the ultimate capability that you're able to create and do the most that you can with what you've been given. The way Eleanor Roosevelt said it, she's one of my favorites, was do what you can where you are with what you have. And I think that that's a quote that definitely applies to transgender troops in the military, because the constructs and the limitations that have been put on them, the way they've been put in boxes, is just an arbitrary set of binders that don't in fact exist. And by being in the position you're in, you're able to show what you just said, that there are a way of solving issues, not problems, issues that come up. And there are ways of resolving the things that need to be attended to. And then when the person has been allowed to make their full transition and become who they see themselves as, then they can do the best at the mission that they're capable of, because then they will be the person that they have been called to be.
Well, we've come to the break time. We'll be back momentarily. Again, we want to thank our guests, our special guest, Colonel Bree Fram, and our co-chaplain, Chaplain Maureen F. Burns, and our incredible administrator, Pastor Sue. And I'm going to go back out, Pastor Sue, and I'm going to stay out for a minute or two until perhaps I can figure out what's going on with my tag. Okay?
Okay. I mean, you sound great. You sound great now. So as long as everyone stays muted when they're not speaking, that will alleviate all of that background noise. So I don't think it's necessary that you come back in, but
Okay.
All right. Okay. So
Okay.
let's get into our announcements for a little bit. Thank you, all of you who are watching and who will catch this in the replay. We so appreciate that you are taking your time to spend with us as we have a conversation with our wonderful guests. Want to remind you to join us on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're watching on a page other than TFAM Veterans, or if watching from a group other than the TFAM Veterans group, we want to invite you to like our page on Facebook and also join the group so that you are kept up to date on all of the wonderful happenings that we have and that we are going to have going forward. If you have an idea for a topic, or if you would like to be a guest, or you have someone in mind that you think should be a guest on our National Veteran Support Group broadcast, please let us know. Please let us know. We would love to have you. Chaplain Maureen Burns is a life coach, is an advanced law of attraction practitioner, and the name of her organization is Transformations Possible, and she has life coaching available. Learn law of attraction and spiritual principles for success. And if you're interested in her services, you can send an email to transformationspossible@gmail.com or call her at 808-264-6252. On Wednesday evenings, tomorrow, we invite you to join us for Beyond the Gatekeepers over on Bishop Yvette Funder's page, and also at Beyond the Gatekeepers page on Facebook, on Twitter at B Gatekeepers, and on YouTube at Beyond the Gatekeepers. On Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, with Bishop Yvette E. Flunder, Dr. Vanessa M. Brown, and Bishop Carlton D. Pearson. Cara Solutions focus on your passion. Let Cara handle the rest. Cara offers remote production and video conferencing, administration, and tech support. Let Cara do the heavy lifting so that you can focus on your event. We offer custom branding, show development, and training. And so for more information on a wide range of services, please visit our website at www.cara-solutions.com. If you have an idea for your own broadcast or a podcast, and you're not sure how to get it started, I can help you with that. I'm a great conversation partner. So please send me an email to sue@cara-solutions.com for a free consultation. we want to invite you to support our broadcast by sending a cash up to Serving Veterans. I know that Chaplain PJ is currently having issues at the bank, but that doesn't mean you can't still support. So if you're interested in supporting this broadcast so that we can continue bringing you this content, we invite you to do so by going to Cash App and put $ serving veterans. That's $ serving veterans. Once again, we thank you for joining us. We ask that you do share this broadcast with your networks and join in the conversation by posting your questions and your comments. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Chaplain PJ, Chaplain Mo, and our guest for this evening.
Chaplain Colonel Bree, I want to ask a question that's uncomfortable, and I'm going to say it's uncomfortable to some of the viewers as well. I happen to be a military sexual trauma survivor, and I'm wondering how that has impacted people that are transgender that serve in the military. Is that an ongoing issue or problem, or is it pretty much working itself out?
So, sexual trauma within the military is an issue that affects everyone, and I wouldn't point to transgender folks as more or less affected than any other group. It tends to be our younger folks are where it happens more often, but it's just as painful. And if someone believes then that their gender identity or their sexuality may have contributed to the assault, it may be almost a double trauma for someone who has to go through that. Now, I'm thankful, I am blessed, I am so lucky not to have experienced that, but my heart goes out to anyone that has, because that is such a brutal violation of trust, and it is something the military has to continue working hard to stamp out, because it is something that absolutely violates everything we believe in, destroys the trust in a unit, and is something that we just can't have. So I'm so sorry that you had to go through that, and proud of you for being a survivor. I'm proud of everyone else who's made it through and continues to fight as we work to reduce and hopefully eliminate this threat to our military.
Thank you, Colonel Bree.
We are very, very proud of Chaplain Maureen, and become quite upset when she is asked to do things that she really shouldn't have to do. About 6 months ago, in spite of the fact that her story is documented in her records, she still had to prove that she couldn't have children, and because of the assault. And of all things, they sent a male gynecologist. I mean, just no sensitivity, it seems, from senior officers or people who, senior officers or people who are higher up than we are, to send someone who looks like the very people that assaulted her. I was quite upset about that. I can't do anything about it other than empathize with my sister. But I don't know how that culture is going to be eradicated, because it is not only a military culture, it just seems to be a worldwide culture that boys will be boys and men will be men and get on with it. Kind of an attitude. And there is so much. In my case, I knew that my career would have been over if I had made a complaint. And at that point in time, I didn't want my career to be over. So I just kept my mouth shut, and suffered quite a bit from keeping my mouth shut. Ended up being diagnosed with some stuff that is still uncomfortable, and I'm working on diminishing the taboos around sexual assault, around schizophrenia, around depression, because when we don't talk about these things, when there isn't someone we can trust to help us debrief all of this anxiety that results from being assaulted, sexually assaulted, emotionally assaulted, financially assaulted, being passed over, for an example, then we end. It's going to come out somewhere. It's going to show up somewhere because the body doesn't forget. And maybe you've heard that before, the body does. So Chaplain Maureen is an inspiration to me and an inspiration to many who are aware of her story or who hear her story. And I have found that it's just a handful of people that stigmatize us. And I suppose they will always stigmatize us because of their level of comfort. That's what I'm thinking. But before we go any further, I didn't take the opportunity until now to share with the audience some and that is about Colonel Fram. Fram, is it Frame or Fram?
It's Fram.
Fram, Colonel Fram. She is currently assigned to the beast, the Pentagon. She is in the belly of that beast. You know, the other beast is the president's vehicle car, but she is assigned to the Pentagon to lead. This is just so important for those of you who are listening. I don't know if you can put yourself in the position of empathizing, if you can walk in the shoes just long enough to hear that these key words, lead, space acquisition policy development for the Department of the Air Force. Prior to recommissioning into the Air Force in 2021, Colonel Fram served 18 years in a variety of Air Force positions, including a research and development command position and an oversight role for all Air Force security cooperation activity with Iraq. In earlier assignments, the colonel served in the Air Force Directorate of Strategic Plans as a legislative fellow. Good Lord, at the United States Capitol on the staff of Congresswoman Madeline Brodalla. Is that the way that's pronounced?
Bordillo.
Okay, Brodillo. Several tours as a program manager for satellite and technology programs and deployed to Qatar. Is that correct?
Qatar.
Qatar. Where is that?
That's in the Middle East, in the Persian Gulf.
Okay. And Iraq as part of Operation Iraqi Freedom. Now, and I'm not trying to be funny when I ask you, have you seen any of our intergalactic neighbors?
I have not. You know, if when you do the math, odds are they're out there. But will we see them? Will we ever reach them? Hard to say. But I'm pretty confident there's life out there somewhere other than Earth.
I would definitely agree with that. And now I'm humbled by this. The Colonel has appeared on ABC and NBC Nightly News, PBS News Hour, and NPR's All Things Considered. Who is she? I used to listen to that. Is the lady that used to be over that still with it, or did she leave us?
They have a number of different hosts that are part of the show, and most of them stay for decades. But they're rotating through, so a lot of familiar voices if you listen, I'm sure.
Okie dokie. The morning edition and 1A. What is 1A?
1A is their daytime talk show called about the First Amendment and freedom of speech. So it just covers a wide range of political and current event topics.
Her writings has been featured in the Washington Post, Military Times, Inkstick, and LGBTQ Nation. What is Inkstick?
Inkstick is a collection of contemporary military, foreign policy, and social issue stories.
I'm afraid you're going to send me an invoice when I finish telling the folks all about you. She has been a featured speaker on leadership, diversity, and inclusion, and LGBTQ plus topics at, catch this now, listen up, at Fortune 500 corporations, at universities, at military and government organizations. Having spoken with audiences in the UK, Norway, and Israel, Colonel Bree is a member of the State Department's U.S. Speaker Program, which collaborates with embassies and consulates around the world to connect foreign audiences with American experts on topics of strategic importance to the United States. Do you have a bodyguard?
My children might try.
Tell us a little bit about your children.
I have two daughters, age 9 and 13. They are wonderful and terrible all at the same time. I love them. I love them dearly. I don't always like them, but they are incredible, and I am so lucky to have them in my life, have them in my corner, be supporters of me and who I am, even
Yes.
going through the transition with me. Along with my wife as well. It's not just me. It was a very much a family event. So I'm
Yes.
so thankful for them and for the amazing people that they're going to become and already are.
And already are. Well, I thank you so very, very much. The 13-year-old is on the military clock, and the 9-year-old is still on the civilian clock until, let's see, that would be 0900. Well, I get if she wants to be on the military clock, we can make it 0900 as opposed to the other daughter who is already at 1300. So I thank you. I've read the article that you have agreed that we could put in our book, Healing My Soul, a redemptive response to death by suicide, where have already collected, and Chaplain Maureen has submitted her article. And as I looked at the rest of your bio, I mean, it's 3.25 pages long, but what is so beautiful about it is your writings. Now, which one of these writings? You don't have your wife's writing on this, do you?
No, I don't. And it's amazing that she writes as well and shares her journey and the challenges she's faced from a spouse's perspective.
Sure.
Her challenges with mental health. So I reflect myself on that type of thing, and it's her to reflect herself with those writings. But it's amazing to again share this journey with her and her ability to be so open and authentic as well about things that a lot of people don't want to talk about.
Yes. If you were in Chaplain Maureen's chair, or in my chair, or in Pastor Sue's chair, what is it that we have not asked you that you want to tell us about?
Well, I think we've touched on all the big issues about why diversity and inclusion is so important to a modern military and to this nation in everything that we do. That if we ever self-limit as individuals, or even worse, self-limit as a nation by putting in place discriminatory policies that exclude people for something that has absolutely nothing to do with their capacity to be included or to contribute. Just how important and that is, and how damaging it is if you do that kind of self-limiting. So just anything we can do to get people to be expansive and inclusive in their thinking about how do we bring people in, how do we bring out the best in people and set the environment where everyone feels that it's okay to be themselves.
Colonel Bree, can we talk about integrity for a moment?
Sure.
Absolutely.
How can a person be of integrity when they're not allowed to be themselves?
Yeah, that's something that any of us who served under the trans ban, LGB folks that served under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, we struggle with that. And the way I think about it is we have things that are more important than we are. We have things that we want to be a part of, that we contribute to, that we believe in, that are a higher piece of our identity than others. So for me, being trans, I like to say there's 6 or 7 interesting things about me, and you know, trans is 7 or 8. But the fact that I wanted to serve, that the events of September 11th changed my worldview, made me want to join the military, be part of something bigger than myself. I put that first, and I had to put that other thing on the back burner. So I kept my integrity to my higher level values, but I think so many of us had to take that little piece of ourselves and shove it away. But what the cost is that we couldn't be our best, just that we talked about. We couldn't perform for our country the way our country needed us to, because we were putting something aside. We could still be good. It's still valuable to have your service and your integrity, but it wasn't all there. And none of us were who we could be.
Colonel Bree, the incident that Chaplain PJ referred to earlier, I actually had to have a radical hysterectomy as a result of the damage that was done to me. I was raped by 3 senior drill sergeants. And what they did was they made me fly from Maui to Oahu to measure my scar. And they made a male doctor do it rather than getting me a female. And, you know, when you go through something like that and you're still treated like a second-class citizen, I often find, as a female who has served in the military, that we were treated as second-class citizens. The men were the standard and the women were other than. And so I often felt apart from rather than a part of. Do you ever have that feeling as a woman?
So there are pieces of that. I am, again, incredibly lucky, not only that I think our military culture has improved, doesn't mean there's not still a long way to go, but I've had the honor of, you know, working in a very nerdy career field in the Air Force, where we tended to be, you know, mostly just officers, very similar backgrounds, and it became kind of, you know, what do you bring to the team? And as long as you contributed, that's why you're valued, and that's what's important. And I think that's really important to the military as a whole is, are you taking care of the person to your left and to your right? And if so, great. We want you to be part of the team. You're a valued member. So again, lucky in my instance of not really feeling that or going through that. But then again, I've served the majority of my career where everyone thought I was a white man. And that's a lot of privilege associated with that. Transitioning opened my eyes to a lot of things. You know, simply the fact of walking into a meeting and looking around like, wow, there's one other woman here, or there's no women, or there's, you know, one other minority of whatever way we would describe ourselves. And it's challenging sometimes to think about that, like, who's my allies in this room? And to just realize that people other than me have been doing that their entire careers. And again, what's the mental burden that puts on people, that they think they have to do that, rather than, you know, what I was able to do for so much of my career and just walk in and, you know, it didn't matter. I was part of the majority and didn't have to even think about that.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that you are raising the consciousness of those who look like you but may be different because of you being transgender, but because both of you are Caucasian, um, that you're able to talk about the power of inclusion or the power of diversity and change some hearts?
Yeah, I really hope so. That the conversations I have with people and that what trans people in general have simply by existing and coming into contact with others, realizing that we're all human, that there's so much diversity out there that is visible, but there's also so much diversity out there that it's kind of like the iceberg. 90% of it is underwater in what our background is, what our faith community is or isn't, what our socioeconomic status is, what our degrees and our interests are in. So there's so much about it that we have to be able to embrace, by finding out through listening, through having those engaging conversations, through signaling that we're open to having those conversations, regardless of who you are, that you're included, you're valuable, that diversity is important. But I take it that step further. It's not diversity necessarily that is critical. It's that inclusion piece. And inclusion has to be something that's intentional, that we do by signaling why inclusion is important, that we do embrace everyone and really bring people together. The phrase I heard that I love repeating is, diversity is a fact for most of us in the organizations we belong to. But inclusion is an act, and we can all do better at it.
My goodness. Follow
Col
up?
Bree, we use the term radical inclusion in City of Refuge and the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries because it's not just something that we implement or experience, but it has to be radical because of the history we come from. We have to take radical action.
Absolutely.
Radical and intentional. Yes?
Couldn't agree more.
Pastor Sue?
I'm so sorry. I'm already in the other in the other Zoom.
Okay, all right.
So
Just wondered if you had any follow-up.
no, I just, because that delivery came, I didn't get, but I am just so appreciative. We need to have you back, Col Bree, because you are just, you're just a breath of fresh air. And two, you're just so profound, your wisdom. I'm so grateful that you said yes to this conversation tonight. And I do hope that you will accept another invitation to come back and hang out with us again.
Love to join you again sometime.
And you're extremely articulate.
Absolutely.
Too much practice.
Movie star material. So I'm curious about the picture on the wall behind you to your right.
Yeah, so I wanted to represent both my grandparents behind me, both my grandfathers. On my right is grandfather on my dad's side, served in the Army Signal Corps during World War II. And I like to think I got some of my brains from him. He captured an entire German company of over 200 men with just 4 men and a jeep. Was able to convince them that their town was surrounded and received the German officer's sword in a surrender ceremony. So pretty amazing what he did. And then on the other side is my other grandfather, who was a refugee from Germany in the 1930s, came over, enlisted in the United States military at his first opportunity, and rose to become the youngest first sergeant in the European Theater of Operations in the armor. And it was incredible, his history and support. And he was so proud of me and who I was and who I am, that it was just amazing to have his support in my life from this man that, knew and faced evil, and saw the same, and knew just how important it was to stand up and fight back when rights were being trampled on.
It's amazing. What a legacy. What a legacy. Again, we want to remind the viewing and listening audience and those that will be going back for a retake. The name of the Colonel's book is With Honor and Integrity, Transgender Troops in Their Own Words. We look forward to having you back again, and I want to say as we close, you sound
One more important question. Colonel Bree, do you have any political aspirations?
Well, who knows where I'll go after the military, but for now, I am absolutely focused on accomplishing the mission of the United States Space Force, and it's an honor to serve.
Okay.
And Chaplain Maureen, we want her when she retires to at least have 1 star on her shoulder.
Yes, ma'am.
At least 1 star, right?
I would take a lot of luck, but we'll see where this ride ends up. It's been fun.
Well, I certainly want to say that you talk more like a faith-filled person than a lot of people who say they are faith-filled, and that says a lot to me. I certainly feel that there is a connection between the 3 of us, that we are family, the 4 of us, that we are all members of the same family in Christ or creation. And I thank you very, very much. The closing paragraph of my article is: the music of my era helps me maintain my faith. As I research for today's African American history maker, I can hear in my heart the late Doris Akers and Mahalia Jackson singing, "I believe for every drop of rain that falls, a flower grows. I believe that somewhere in the darkest night, a candle glows. I believe that for everyone who goes astray, someone will come to lead the way. I believe. I believe above the storm, the smallest prayer will still be heard. I believe that someone in the great somewhere hears every word. Every time I hear a newborn baby cry, or touch a leaf, or see the sky, then I know why. I believe." May goodness and mercy follow you all the days of your life. And good night.
Good night.